Welcome Matters With. I'm your host, ThisPhillipBrian. Today we're here to discuss Detective Matters with You. In the Pale Blue Eye, starring Christian Bale, releases on Netflix today, January 6th of 23. There has been an apparent suicide at West Point. However, someone carved the heart out of the corpse. The officers at West Point contact a local retired constable from New York City to look into the matter. He quickly determines this was no suicide, and there's a lot going on at West Point. A odd, yet astute, and rather eloquent speaking young cadet with a penchant for alcohol begins to share his own observations of what may be going on at West Point and assisting the constable. That young cadet is Edgar Allan Poe. This story, when I saw the trailer for it, I immediately wanted to see it because it's meta. Okay, so we have Edgar Allan Poe, who invented detective fiction, in a story about a detective trying to resolve a murder or series of murders at West Point, where Edgar Allan Poe is one of the cadets. This is fun historical fiction, and the actor, Christian Bale, playing the detective, the constable, is a man who thrice played the world's greatest detective. Now, none of that will matter if the story's not good. The story's very good. It is a tense, well-written plot. Beyond Christian Bale, the cast includes the always wonderful Gillian Anderson, also the ever-fantastic Robert Duvall. But this film belongs to Harry Melling as Edgar Allan Poe. The costumes are wonderful. The sound mixing is phenomenal. The score has this wonderful vacantness to it without feeling empty. It is well put together in so many ways. As the story progresses, the officers begin to suspect that maybe Poe is involved in this murder that is now murders at West Point. But Landor, the constable, he does not suspect Poe. He recognizes in Poe a pain and a somberness and a darkness and an intellect that he can truly identify with. In the Pale Blue Eye is a good film. But it's a good film because of those things that I mentioned. The costumes are great. The sound mixing is great. The acting is absolutely phenomenal. It's well written. The story moves along poorly. And that's why it's not so good. The editing here is substandard in contrast to everything else. You could have probably shaved 25 minutes off this movie, maybe 25% off this movie, and still told the same story, highlighted all those amazing actors with all that great dialogue, and it would have moved along a lot faster and probably had more mass appeal. I think for most people, it's going to be a bit of a struggle and a bit too slow. I love detective fiction, but detective fiction has to move along at a purposeful pace, and this falls into a meandering pace. I love slow burns, but sometimes this loses fire. Overall, I'm going to give it a C+. Scratch that. Not a C+. I'm going to give it a B- because Christian Bale, Gillian Anderson, Robert Duvall, and especially Harry Melling elevate the film above some very poor editing choices. Let me know what you thought of In the Pale Blue Eye. Did you figure out who the murderer is? There's a lot of twists and turns. It is a detective story. All right. Also, what's your favorite Edgar Allan Poe story? I mean, if you're watching this, you've probably read at least one, I would presume. We'll talk soon.